Right now, as we come on the air at 4 o'clock, an Aurora paramedic was just sentenced for his role in the 2019 death of Elijah McClain.
Of course, the jury had already convicted Peter Chikuniak in late December of criminally negligent homicide and second-degree assault for administering drugs without consent. 9 News reporter and investigative reporter Kevin Vaughn has been covering this case since the very beginning. He was in the courtroom this afternoon and joins us now live. Kevin?
Tom, this sentence was just handed down a little while ago after a hearing that included about 2 hours of very emotional testimony. Peter Chikuniak's family, his friends, and some of his colleagues all spoke of his devotion to his family and his devotion to his job. And then Judge Mark Warner heard from Chikuniak himself and from Elijah McClain's mother, Shanine McClain.
I wish I could tell Miss McClain that Elijah was going to be okay, but I can't. These are only a small number of the many, many tragedies that I have experienced in my career, but these are all people that I have wanted to turn to and say, it's going to be okay. They are going to be okay. But I can't.
There is no excuse for a firefighter who is trained to save or preserve life to just stand by and watch attentively as someone loses theirs. Elijah wasn't in a burning building when he was murdered. There was no beam or large obstruction in the way of them saving Elijah's life, except for one of their own colleagues. Elijah was unconscious for an extended amount of time when he was held down and injected with ketamine, which made sure he did not wake up.
Judge Warner said that the law gave him no choice but to give Peter Chikuniak at least 5 years in prison, and that is the sentence he handed down. Chikuniak does have a chance to ask the judge to reconsider that sentence after he's served about 4 months. We'll see if that happens. Tom and Anusha?
Obviously, so many people have been following this case for so long now. This brings this chapter, as you said, maybe not to a full conclusion, but to its end at this point. And I know our Alex Lewis had a chance to speak with Shanine McClain further today. We're going to be hearing that a little bit later. Kevin, thank you. We'll get more from the courthouse coming up in just a few minutes.
And as more reaction is coming into the newsroom this afternoon, we're going to have continued coverage for you on air and online. You can find the latest by downloading our free 9 News app.
This Friday brought March in, and March brought the winds today. Spring-like weather across Colorado, but you can see some of the gusts were pretty hefty today, picking up, causing one red flag warning for today and another for tomorrow. As you can see, some of the wind speeds today right now clocking in at anywhere from the upper teens into the low 20s as far as miles per hour.
And it's going to be a totally different story up in the high country. A lot of mountain areas bracing for winter weather with snow on the way. And Lauren, we're talking about quite a significant amount of snow that could be accumulating this weekend.
That's right. Over the next few days, we'll be telling the story of fire and ice. Hopefully not a lot of either, but we'll be warning for the potential of both. We have a look at our red flag warnings over the next couple of days. The entire eastern half of the state roughly under a red flag warning. Now, today it really includes southern portions of the Front Range around Colorado Springs down through Pueblo, but tomorrow it becomes more widespread across the Front Range and Eastern Plains. So we're going to watch for warm weather. We're going to watch for very gusty winds and dry air to increase that fire weather danger. Now, off to the west, we're still going to see very gusty winds, but it'll be paired with snow. So we're going to watch for blowing snow and whiteout conditions across the high country and into the western slope, where we have winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories. That'll be in effect Saturday evening through Monday. In the meantime, temperatures today well above average. Our seasonal high in Denver for this time of year is 50 degrees. Well, we made it to 65 degrees so far as our high at DIA. Most of the Front Range and Eastern Plains in the middle to upper 60s. We even saw lots of 70s across the Eastern Plains. So I'll have more details on our temperatures, all of our alerts, and your full 7-day forecast. All of that just ahead.
All right, thanks so much for that, Lauren. A Weld County DNA analyst is off the job after investigators discovered some anomalies in her work.
And now the state has to prepare to retest thousands of samples, now saying they found problems with a different analyst's work. So here's 9 News reporter Evan Krugel. Evan, what led to this discovery, and what does this mean as far as criminal cases across the region?
Tom, it remains unclear what exactly those anomalies were, but we've learned that DNA analyst was fired on Wednesday after more than a decade of work inside the Greeley lab. Now, the Weld County Sheriff's Office says it started looking into the work of that woman, Kiara Wench, earlier this year after discovering anomalies or inconsistencies with her work. Those problems were discovered while the CBI was investigating a separate case involving a different analyst. Now, the Northern Colorado Regional Forensics Lab handles forensic testing for 5 different law enforcement agencies, all in that region, but it remains unclear how many potential cases could be impacted by Wench's work.
It's a science that over time has evolved to the position where everybody thinks if it's DNA, it's 100% accurate. And so many people get convicted solely based on DNA evidence. Well, in most cases, it's critical because juries rely very heavily on DNA evidence because it's unimpeachable.
Now, the Weld County Sheriff's Office said in a news release today it plans to pursue criminal charges against Wench. The department declined to comment today, other than a statement from Sheriff Steve Reams reading, quote, "We hire people that we believe have the utmost integrity. No system is better than the people who work in it." Tom.
Well, we hear so many cases now, Evan, involving DNA evidence, and we wonder, A, about the workload that these analysts are put under, and also the oversight as far as those analysts and their work.
Now, this certainly raises a lot of questions, hopefully questions that will be answered in the months to come.
All right, Evan Krugel in the newsroom. Thanks. A man wanted for attempted murder was shot and killed by Jefferson County deputies last night. Just in the last few minutes, we've learned the man's name. Kristen Dock. It happened around 11 o'clock when deputies found a disabled car on Kipling near I-70. Deputies saw expired plates. They called for backup. They say that a man and woman got out of the car and started walking around. The Jeffco Sheriff's Office says both ignored commands and that the man shot at deputies. Deputies fired back, hitting the man. He was taken to the hospital, but that's where he died. The woman and the deputies were not hurt. The man's identity, again, just being released in the last hour.
The CDC is changing up their rules around COVID. Today, they announced people who test positive no longer need to isolate for 5 days. The new guidelines issued today bring COVID recommendations in line with things like flu and RSV and other viruses. The hope is that a single set of guidelines is just going to be easier to follow. The CDC now says people who have COVID-19 should stay home until they've been fever-free without medication for at least 24 hours and your symptoms are getting better. The CDC did still want people to play it safe for 5 days after they do feel better. That's going to include masking around vulnerable people.